2020 was to be surfing's debut on the world's biggest stage in sport. But due to COVID-19, the Games were postponed 1 year. We are taking you inside the lives and minds of the athletes on hold as they stay mentally and physically prepared for the biggest moment in their sport. The excitement is building as we wait for the calendar to flip to 2021. This is the ISA State of Olympic Surfing with Sally Fitzgibbons and Jordy Smith.
Welcome to the ISA State of Olympic Surfing. I'm your host, Chris Cote. We'll be joined by Jordy Nelson as well. Today, we're going deep into the lives and minds of the Olympic athletes who have been granted an additional 365 days to train and get themselves prepared for the upcoming 2021 Olympic Games. On today's episode, we're going to be talking to South African surfer Jordy Smith, as well as Australian Sally Fitzgibbons. And we want to thank Surfline for their continued support. And I also want to welcome Jordy Nelson to the show. Welcome, Jordy.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, happy to be here. Excited to talk to these guys.
Now, Jordy, you were right there in the mix as a sideline reporter at the ISA World Games in Japan. You were right there, up close and personal, feeling the energy when surfers were being announced that they had potentially qualified for the Olympic Games. Of course, from there, it's been a wild road, to say the least. But let's go to that time where you were there on the beach, surrounded by hundreds of the best surfers on the planet, and names started popping up as potential Olympic qualifiers. And then, of course, the big bad news came down the line that the Olympics was going to be postponed for a year. So tell me about the reaction from then to the announcement to right now.
Yeah, I mean, being on the sideline during the Japan event was incredible. The energy on the beach, and you could just tell how much it meant to each of these surfers, and being able to see some of these surfers from, Morocco and Israel and, all these different countries actually get that provisional qualification. It was, they were beside themselves. And two of those athletes that qualified, Jordy Smith and Sally Fitzgibbons, they had that high of qualifying. And then, of course, we all know life as we know it has changed in 2020, and everything has been postponed and just really disrupted. But it's really interesting to sit back and watch to see how each of these athletes are responding and reacting to this downtime. And I think as this all shakes out, we're going to see who rises to the occasion and is really sharpening their swords, preparing for Tokyo.
But we will have Jordy and Sally live here on this show. But before we get there, there is a lot of different ways that surfers can make the journey into the Olympics. For Jordy Smith, the journey has been wild, to say the least. And he's got some big news for us. Let's take a look at the journey that Jordy Smith has taken over the past 6 months.
My name is Jordy Smith, and I surf for South Africa. Before COVID hit, I was in Hawaii. I was over there training and surfing, and at that point had to try and make the decision and the move to be able to get back to South Africa as the United States were shutting down their borders. We were fortunate enough to get on the last flight from Washington. It took us all in all about 2 weeks to get back home. Once we reached, home, we were extremely excited. I'm not much of a dreamer, and I always thought it was, you kind of lived in this la-la land, and those were dreams. For me, when I was a little kid, I always put goals in place. Goals were things that you put in place and you work towards. That's what the Olympics was to me. It was a dream. It was probably one of the rarest dreams to me, because I really had no idea or no thought ever that it was going to be a part of surfing. For that to be able to come true in my lifetime, during the peak of my career, is really something special and something that I'll take to the bank and memorize forever. As far as surfing goes, I mean, for me, it's absolutely given me everything in my life. You know, it's a weird thing, the water. You know, a lot of people always speak about being in the moment and being where you are. I think surfing really, really does that. I don't think it gives you the time or place to be anywhere else other than to be right there on that wave. It's a very special thing knowing, you know, on the other side of it, how far that swell has come from. You know, it's been traveling across the ocean for days and days and days on end, and it's finally going to reach a shore somewhere, and you're going to ride its last life before it kind of crashes and washes up onto the beach and it's over. And it's something very special to be able to share that with Mother Nature. Being at the World Games, it was really something cool this year. You know, I haven't done it in a very long time. You know, I've been on the tour for like 13 years, so it's such a selfish, kind of separate Czech sport. So for me to be able to go back and kind of reignite that team spirit, that fun, really. When you're walking in, you know, with the Parade of Nations, and there's all these different countries from all over the world, they pour the sand from each one of their local breaks, and they all pour it into this big glass. And you know, some of the teams, the New Zealand team will do the haka. Obviously South Africa, we're very formal, so we're wearing jackets and blazers and stuff like that. It's a really, really awesome day and something that I'll remember forever, and what a thing to be a part of. The infrastructure that they need and that they have in the ISAs is, you know, second to none. You know, my whole career was raised on the ISAs and the results that came from there to be able to slingshot me into the WQS and then onto the WCT. Yeah, very fortunate, you know, with Fernando obviously backing that from a very young age. He's always been a big supporter of mine. I'm always very thankful for that. And just the fact that he's given us that opportunity to be able to have that stepping stone has done wonders. We've seen kids from all over the globe, countries that don't really have the biggest surfing backgrounds, that have really, you know, put out some exceptional results. Yeah, so obviously Lyndall and I'd basically been stalking her for about 2 or 3 years before we actually ended up getting together. I met her at a horse race event. I asked her for one date, and if I could have one date, I would change her mind, and she took me up on that offer. We're married now and been together 10 years. Now she's pregnant, and we're going to have a boy in basically a couple weeks. So some crazy times, but I'm going to be becoming a dad, and I can't wait to be honest to just share some of these personal moments that I have and some of the love, you know, for surfing and the ocean that I have, and just kind of pass that down hopefully, and hopefully he enjoys it.
Wow, big things happening in the life of Jordy Smith, a father-to-be, and of course, right there, just saying how he is realizing his dream of surfing in the Olympics. What an incredible piece.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is how he's matching this great opportunity of surfing being in the Olympics with him being at the peak of his career. I mean, not everybody gets that chance. And Jordy Smith, he's going to have that extra dad power going into Tokyo next year. So it's going to be really cool to watch him rise to the occasion.
And these surfers, as we know, have big goals and dreams. Sally Fitzgibbons is a surfer that works hard at achieving those goals and those dreams. So let's take a look at what Sally Fitzgibbons has been doing to prepare for the upcoming 2021 Olympic Games.
Hey, I'm Sally Fitzgibbons and I'm surfing for Australia. An average 12 months, touring, the pace of it, it's constant. You know, I feel like you're just in this whirlwind of pack, unpack, pack 3 suitcases for events coming up. You don't have time. You're thinking boards are going in and out for particular waves. But for the average person looking in, they're like, whoa, they're just cruising, traveling the world, surfing. So we must make it look pretty calm. And then internally, it's kind of all going you're in the fast lane. I guess now, we're in this COVID kind of pause phase, and you just go, whoa, I move pretty fast. For me, the whole COVID experience was wild. I feel like every few times a week you'd have this check-in with yourself, I feel a bit anxious. Is this crazy? And then you go, oh yeah, it is. I've never seen this in my lifetime. And it's that moment where I really learned to polish the ordinary. You know, that the ordinary is epic. I love my running. For me, running was more suited to my personality and my drive of like, that there's a start line and a finish line and everything in between kind of makes sense. Like you're training, you do it and you push yourself and it's really hard, but it's really rewarding because you kind of see like the result in these PBs or going to the Youth Olympics to get some gold medals there. To be able to kind of, you know, rise all the way to that top tier and have the opportunity to run against some of the world's best was, yeah, it was special. Obviously, the very influential moment at the 2000 Olympics was in Sydney. I was fortunate enough to be in the stadium when Kathy Freeman won the gold medal for the 400 meters. And I think to be there and like feel the crowd and feel the stadium rumble, and that was a significant moment in Australian sport history. Everyone's like, oh no, the Olympic Games aren't on. And I'm like, well, it's just, you know, the party's still gonna happen, just not right now. And so it does, it gives you this breathing space, this room to kind of figure out in your surfing and your performance. Like I've been around quite a while now. So it's like, you know, to show up again and think like that the sport doesn't move or the performance level doesn't elevate would be quite kind of like ignorant in a sense. The greats of the game have always been willing to evolve and kept that beginner's mindset and youthfulness. So even in this COVID time, I sort of peeled back and gone like, what can't I do on my board and yet to experience? For me, my heart kind of lies in progression at the moment and pushing, you know, to go to the air. I've always kind of, in a sense, wanted to fly instead of going out and training and, you know, performing everything. And there's this kind of perfection element or bow wrapped around it. It's been the complete opposite in a time like COVID. It's like, rarely making a move because the ones I'm trying I can't do yet. So there's been about 1,000 face plants, a lot of ice packs, but I feel like I'm slowly chipping away. To come back to an event like an ISA World Games or, you know, a World Tour event or even forecasting to the Olympics, I really just feel as though it'll be just this almighty like celebration that, wow, what we do is special. We are fortunate enough to do it. I think everyone will be on board to have that real positive energy to kickstart everything. And then hopefully that gratitude continues on of like, whoa, remember 2020? Like every time you think you're having a tough year or a tough moment, it'll be like, remember that year. And I think it'll put everything into perspective.
But what we just saw there, two separate journeys with one common goal for Olympic gold. So excited to welcome Sally Fitzgibbons from Australia and Jordy Smith coming in from London. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show.
So excited. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, George.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Good to see the faces.
Well, of course, I know that you guys have had some time to think about this and, you know, think about the interviews that you would be doing. You had a year to prepare for this moment. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with you, Sally. You know, Jordy actually talked about it in his piece there, the dreams, right? There's a difference between goals and dreams, but when it comes to the Olympics, those tend to mesh together. Now, I know you've risen through the ranks of the ISA program all the way to the highest heights. So for you, the goal and the dream coming together, you had to wait one extra year for that. But what did that actually do for you to help you prepare for the upcoming 2021 games?
Well, I think it's been really interesting, Chris. It's like that moment that you're preparing for something that you think you know what it's going to be like, just because I've watched the Olympic Games ever since I could remember, but we truly don't know. And I guess the best way to prepare for that is the year like we've just had. Like you kind of just don't know what the end of the story is. You just kind of waking up each day and you just got to see it as the opportunity and that the dream is kind of happening and get an opportunity to kind of interact with it, like instances like this. And yeah, but it's something that's definitely going to build the excitement. And as I said in my profile piece, it's just going to be this almighty kind of celebration. It'll be just cool to have everyone come back together.
Yeah, and for you, Jordy, I think you're probably in a similar position. You know, you've got the news that you had qualified, and I can imagine that took some time to actually set in. So you talked about the goals and the dreams in your piece there. So now what does that mean that you've had so long to really think about it all? So tell us the difference between the goal and now living the actual dream of surfing in the Olympics.
Yeah, like I was saying, you know, with it initially being that dream of kind of never really, of not much, you know, or not knowing the possibilities. And then it was only until about 3 years ago when there were talks and like people were mentioning that the surfing was going to be a part of the Olympics. And I think it was in that moment where the dream switched to a goal. And for me, it just became like, well, how am I going to position myself in that time frame to be able to be a part of it? And I've got to be able to do and achieve anything that I can to make it happen. And then, yeah, like when I qualified and I was the first male, it actually really sunk in right then and there. It was like, okay, I'm more of the kind of person that's I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What do I got to do next? Like, forget what's happened in the past, but what do I got to do next? And yeah, I just started putting one foot in front of the other and putting things in place to be able to make it happen.
Sally, I wanted to ask you a little question about your piece. I mean, I think it's so cool. Both of you guys are already qualified. So you have like that pressure off and you can just focus on what you need to do to prepare for the Olympics. You know, it's so interesting. You're sitting back, taking this time to really say, what can't I do? And what do I need to improve on? You know, working on the air game and your progression and your surfing is just really cool. But talk to us a little bit about what that process is like, because I know some of the girls here in California have been going to Waco and just doing repetition in the wave pools, but you're actually, from my understanding, doing this all in the ocean because you don't have access to a wave pool. Kind of walk us through what that process has been like for you.
Oh, it definitely gets me out of bed in the morning, Jodes. It's one of those things that you're just excited, I think, when you're past that point of, like, as I said, not trying to make everything perfect and come in from a session and like, yeah, I made everything. It's like quite the opposite, and it's pretty confronting to come in and just be like day after day, like I made nothing at all. And I've pretty much smashed my board into a million pieces on my body. And I think the coolest thing in having Jordy here and on this piece is that, like, we've watched these guys surfing and inspire us for ever since I could remember. And one of my favorite parts, I think, in Modern Collective of George that I've had on repeat, like time and time again, or when him and Jules went to reunion, you know, and they were going back and forth. And I think Red Bull did a super cool piece where it was just super slow-mo and you're trying to absorb it all, and you'd sit there for hours watching it on your TV or computer, and then you're like, I'm ready. And then you go out and you kind of like do what you think is going to happen, that you see Jordy do per se, and then you load up and then like your board doesn't even move or something, and you're just like, whoa, I'm so humbled right now. And it feels like I haven't surfed a day in my life. And I think that's the beginner's mindset. I think that's what's kept me youthful, and I'm more excited about my surfing than ever. So we'll see where it leads.
That's awesome. And that kind of brings me to my next question for Jordy. You know, you guys are so used to traveling on tour all year and competing against the best in the world, you know, competition after competition. How are you keeping that competitive side of yourself sharp? Because I know, you know, that's something that's hard to implement when you're not, you know, going blow to blow with these guys in heats. How have you been keeping your competitiveness sharp?
Well, I think for me, I'm just a competitive person. It's like in my nature. So that doesn't, whether it's running across the street or whatever it is, you know, the traveling side of things have kind of shifted, but not much for me. You know, as soon as I made the trip back to South Africa, it was our winter, and our borders were closed. So you couldn't take flights throughout, each little state. And there were obviously good waves in Durban and J-Bay and Cape Town. And I was just kind of getting in the car, headlocking a filmer, and then just driving up and down the coast nonstop for 3 months illegally, pretty much. But, so my whole drive and the competitive side of me there would just come out because I would just want to get, the best waves I possibly could in South Africa. And I would be on absolutely every single swell. The positive side of having a year off due to the COVID thing was I was able to surf, a winter in South Africa for the first time in 13 years. And
That's
so
awesome.
that for me was like huge, to be able to surf every spot that I always wanted to, where I'd be like, normally I'd be in Brazil grinding out cutbacks and I'd be watching my mates get 20-second barrels, I finally got to experience that. So I did not miss one swell. And that's kind of where the competitive thing came in for me again. I was just like, I got to chase everything and be on every single wave, every swell.
From the footage we've been seeing, it looks like you won the wave search contest. So congratulations, Jordy, a big win for you over the past 6 months. Now, this is a question for both of you. The whole world has found new hobbies, has found new ways to use their time during the pandemic. Jordy, I know you actually started a surfboard company. It was a little bit before this, but I'm sure you've been able to focus on it. You grew up, your dad was a shaper. So of course, shaping and surfboards in your blood. And for you, Sally, I know you're training hard. You're a certified personal trainer. So you both have things to focus on other than just hardcore surfing. Let's start with you, Sally. The personal training, the building of one's self. And, I feel like in teaching someone all of these things, you can actually learn a lot for yourself. So what have you been doing, Sally, out of the water to prepare yourself and share what you've learned with others?
Yeah, I guess the COVID time's been really special to connect back into my community in Australia, and all the projects or products I've kind of developed along the way. I've kind of seen them as just like dropping seeds of things that I enjoy and I feel like that anyone and everyone can benefit from and really bring the best out of themselves. And so yeah, it was cool to get like my personal training under my belt. And then in COVID time, it's been cool to more be on the tech side and develop some apps. And I really want to drive that into the learn to surf kind of intermediate community and just rally around getting them on the soft tops out there for summer in Australia. And just spending that time living in the process and I guess not always packing up and leaving. And leaving kind of the project behind, like I'll get to it, and then you just never do. So just kind of looking in the box and like going, okay, I got to clean this whole thing up, archive all the footage and do my own edits because everyone's kind of being isolated. It's hard not having the full team, but it's really kind of brought my skills to the forefront. And so it's been really hands-on and really involved. It's been awesome.
Oh, that's great. And for Jordy, speaking of new businesses being started, I know that you and your dad, of course, have an amazing relationship. It goes way back. You've won major contests on boards that your dad shaped. You're back together again. Smith surfboards. I've seen the photos. I've seen the footage. The boards look amazing. How much confidence have you gotten through developing not only your own surfboard brand, but doing it with family and friends and basically making your dream boards a reality through Smith surfboards?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's been, a long time coming, I think. Obviously I rode for 3 other brands before that, that were so experienced and so there was so much knowledge. So I think for me to be able to bring that back to my dad and kind of to where it all began for us is really exciting. And I think, it's the one element that should always kind of continue to evolve and just to kind of get better and better. And it's the funnest part of the whole process. I think even Sal will say, getting new boards every single time you get them, it's the same feeling, as the very first time you got them, whether it's putting your stickers on or how far you're going to wax it up, what fins you're going to use. and it's a completely new experience every time you stand up. So it's always something fresh for me, especially having ADHD, you know, just to see something new and have something fresh all the time is good.
I've got one last question for Sally. I'll make it quick. But Sally, you talked in your piece about that moment in 2000 when you were in the stadium when Kathy Freeman won, and the weightness and the importance of that. Do you think that you're prepared for that moment when you're actually like competing in the Olympics? It's kind of, to me, it seems like one of those things you think you can mentally prepare for, but then when it happens, it's just, you know, gotta be, it's one of the biggest moments in sports. How do you feel you're mentally prepared for that moment?
I feel like I've reserved the space for it, Jode. I feel as though in my life, I've definitely imagined like an Olympic dream time after time since I was probably 6 years old. And yeah, just holding that space for it meant even though I transitioned off to surfing, it wove back into my life, and it's going to be there and present for me to experience. And we've just had like the 20th anniversary of going through the Sydney 2000 games here, and they did such a brilliant job of this documentary on Freeman and on the moment. I sat there watching on the TV, and my tears were just like, it's still so raw, and I feel like I'm still so connected to that moment. And I was actually on the track today with my first ever running coach, and back in his shed where we train, he's got all like the posters that are a little bit faded, but just so many Olympic moments. And yeah, it definitely just gets that energy buzzing around it. Yeah, as I said, I don't know what it's going to be like. I do know that from other athletes' experience, they're like, no, it doesn't even affect me. And they've looked down at like their heart rate monitor on the start line, haven't even started like racing yet, and they reckon their heart rate was through the roof. And they're like, oh gosh, I think it is actually affecting me. So it's going to be, yeah, I think that moment where you look around and it will feel familiar in a sense, because I think the special part is lining up with the likes of Jordy over there for South Africa with the jersey on too, and all those moments at the ISA games where you're inspired by I think my first ever ISA games was watching their final, and it had Julian and Jeremy. I don't know if you remember that, Jord, that final.
Brazil,
was yeah, as a 14-year-old, I just thought it was like the bee's knees, and like to have like Jules going to the games and Jordy and stand there with these guys, it's like, yeah, it's like a snapshot of our generation.
It's awesome.
Incredible. Well, huge moments in the past for both of you in the ISA system, of course, on the CT as well. And Jordy, I think we're all on the same page here, saying you have the biggest moment coming up, of course, the Olympics, but also becoming a dad. So congratulations on that. Your child is going to be able to watch you in the first ever Olympic Games in surfing. So we can't wait to meet the new one. And we want to say thank you to both of you for coming on tonight and giving us your story. And of course, now that we know the date, we know it's happening, summer is literally right around the corner, and it's going to be here before we know it. So you guys keep getting prepared. We can't wait to see what happens. Sally Fitzgibbons, Jordy Smith, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And you can start preparing right now, because we will see you guys very soon in Tokyo for the 2021 Olympic Games.
Thanks, guys. Miss you, Jordan.
Thanks,
See you,
guys.
mate. Have a good one. Cheers, guys.
Well, Jody, how cool is it to see two parallel stories happening from different sides of the world, but again, the same goal? It started off, well, to get surfing in the Olympics, then to be one of the surfers to compete in the Olympics, and now we know both Jordy and Sally going for that Olympic gold. And what I loved was the energy that you felt from both of them. You know, when this topic comes up, no matter what surfer you're talking to, there's always that little glisten in their eye. There's something special that happens when you start talking Olympics to these surfers.
Yeah, I mean, it means so much to both of them. I know Sally, it's been a dream of hers since she was little and thought she was going to the Olympics as a runner. And now, you know, for both of them being able to achieve this in their sport of surfing. And I know we talked a lot about the prestige of the Olympics and whatnot, but let's not forget, this is the first time and the debut for the sport of surfing. And that in of itself is a huge part of history. So they're just it's like they're breaking ground in so many different ways. And it's just really cool to sit back and listen to what they've been working on and what's been driving them. And I'm sure a year from now, Jordy's going to have like extra dad superpowers, and Sally's going to be doing, huge air reverses, and the progression of women surfing is going to be through the roof. So I'm super excited to see surfing make its debut in the Olympics in a year.
Well, thank you for that, Jody Nelson. And before we go, we got to bring in a special guest. I'm talking about the hardest working man in surfing, president of the ISA, Fernando Aguerre. Welcome to the show. And I got to say, I know you've put in years, decades of hard work to get us to where we are today. With that extra year of preparation, has anything changed for you? Have you added or subtracted any of the plans that you've had for the upcoming 2021 Olympic Games?
Yeah, there is a lot of little things that are moving targets, but basically it's like you thought you needed 3 strokes for the wave, and now you need an extra stroke. So that's all. It's just head down, butt up, and paddle harder. So we actually been repolishing what already looked very nice and done, but we have an extra year to do it. So you can always improve it, and you can always do it better. You can always look back and say, how come I didn't think about this? It doesn't matter how much you prepare. There's always some things that could be done in a different way. So, all in all, yes, it is a little bit of a downer. Oh, come on, an extra year. But, you're still getting married. You still love her. So it's just an extra year for the wedding. It happened.
Fernando, a lot of people, of course, showing appreciation for what the ISA and what you have done for surfing. But I got someone here who's about to tell you and show you how much it's meant to him to be part of the ISA. This is Jordy Smith. Here we go.
So for me to be able to go back and kind of reignite that team spirit, that fun, really. When you're walking in, with the Parade of Nations, and there's all these different countries from all over the world, they pour the sand from each one of their local breaks, and they all pour it into this big glass. And some of the teams, the New Zealand team will do the haka. Obviously South Africa, we're very formal, so we're wearing jackets and blazers and stuff like that. It's a really, really awesome day, and something that I'll remember forever, and what a thing to be a part of. The infrastructure that they need and that they have in the ISAs is, second to none. My whole career was raised on the ISAs and the results that came from there to be able to slingshot me into the WQS and then onto the WCT. Yeah, very fortunate, with Fernando obviously backing that from a very young age. He's always been a big supporter of mine. I'm always very thankful for that. And just the fact that he's given us that opportunity to be able to have that stepping stone has done wonders. We've seen kids from all over the globe, countries that don't really have the biggest surfing backgrounds, that have really, put out some exceptional results.
So from
nice.
Jordy right there, that was a little love letter to you in the ISA.
Yeah. It was nice for me. It's really a pleasure, look back and see, a lot of them, growing up from, super young kids, with a lot of talent, and it's tough. The path they choose to be the top professional surfer in the world is a very difficult path, and for me, it was a dream to have the best surfers of every country, which included some of the top professionals, coming back wearing their national jersey, just like it's done in soccer, it's done in tennis, it's done in basketball, it's done in many sports. So it's I'm glad that they get it, and I think the Miyazaki experience for a lot of them was like, wow, this is how good it was. But now it's like kind of like going back to school, to the high school where you went there 20 years ago and say, oh wow, this was fun. Maybe I didn't really appreciate what I was getting at that time, but now you look back and says, wow, that was very special, So thank you, Jordy. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, we've had a great show. We had the opportunity to talk to Jordy as well as Sally Fitzgibbons. Let's talk a little bit about Sally, her being pretty much the ultimate ambassador to the sport. What excites you about watching Sally's journey into the Summer Olympic Games?
Yeah, well, Sally was kind of, like, it's hard because you got, like Stefan in front of you, and she's just such a huge personality and star, and then you get Sally, which is amazing. It's as good, as eloquent, very healthy, very nice. She has time to talk to anybody and everybody, and then she goes in the water and she's like she slashes it. She just kills it. For me, I admire people, but I just don't admire sports performance. I think that, if you're just a great athlete and that's all you are, it's great. But when you're a great athlete and you inspire and you rock the world and you change the paradigm, then hats off. You have to. And Sally's one of those.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there. Well, thank you so much, Fernando, for joining us. I know you've got a lot of hard work yet to do as the Summer Olympic Games is right around the corner. We'll let you get back to it. So on behalf of us here at the ISA and the State of Olympic Surfing, I want to thank all of you for joining us and watching, and take the ride with us as we make the world a better place through surfing. See you next time.
Adios.